Hello and good day to you. Today's video will be knitting the gathered skirt that we designed using the Design and Knit software. For today we will need an elastic band. You can use a wide elastic. This one, the width is very wide. You can use this one or you can use this other one that the width is slim. We will need yarn. This is DK yarn paint box by Thomas Ramsey. It's Robin brand by Thomas Ramsey. 100% acrylic. We need waste yarn, a fair amount, maybe of 25 grams or so. We need a Ravel cord. Our cast on combs with its connector. We need the full cast on comb with the connectors. And of course we need our needle bed. We need thread and sewing machine. Thread on with its bobbin and sewing machine. The thread should coordinate the yarn that you're going to use, your main yarn. Then we'll need a crochet hook. Why we need a crochet hook is for darning in loose ends after we finish knitting. You know, when you tie stuff, it's not that necessary, or it's not compulsory, but it's a bit necessary. We need 1x1 needle pusher for our cast on, and of course we need our transfer tool because we want to pick up our loop and transfer stitches too. So I've already printed the pattern using the Design and Knit software. If you notice here, I used the text summary for the gather. This will tell us what the number of needles to cast on. Just tell us that this. This will tell us the number of needles to cast on. Tells us to cast on 75 needles left, so right needle 75. It's just a summary, text summary. I hope you can see it clearly. Then I also printed the garment text using the menu of the garment text. In garment text, it tells us up to how many rows we're going to need and when to cast off. It just tells us row by row, like in interactive knitting. I also printed the skirt band, but here I did for the skirt band, when we were designing it, I used my full needle bed because I've extended it. But I'm going to alter that for those that don't have an extended needle bed, that still have just one needle bed. I'm going to alter this. Also, I printed the back of the using text summary because that's just what I need. I'm not knitting the full gown. I'll just show you a sample of the gown that I've knitted, but I'll knit the gather skirt and teach you how to continue. So here I'm just going to teach us how to the needles we are going to cast on, and this is what we are going to use for the skirt band. We'll cast on from left needle 38 to right needle 38. So when we get there, I'll let you know. So first, now we have to cast on 75 needle from 75 left needle 75 to right needle 75, and we are going to knit our welt. So I've already, if you take a look at my, I'll just tilt the camera a little so that you see, I've already threaded my knitting machine. So with my 1x1 needle pusher, I'm going to push needles to hold position. My carriage is set on stocking it. You see this triangle here on both sides, and this lever is on 2. It's on both sides. You have to do them on both sides. So we are using stocking it. So I'm going to push. Since I extended my bed, I have to count now. And now you don't need to change your row counter. So I'll just push 75 left on the right first. This one I think is your full needle bed because it's 75 plus 75 is about 150. So it's 150, sorry. Okay, so to put 75. That's 70. So this 5. I should just push it up on here. Okay. So I've already pushed 75 needles to hold position. Let me adjust the camera so that you see it clearly. So I focused it on the needle bed, and what I'm going to do is put my with my 1x1 needle push. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay. With my 1x1 needle pusher, I'm going to place it on the second needle in. Second needle, you can see it here. Second needle, and push it. Push every alternate needle back to hold position. I'm going to repeat it across the bed. You can see the needle B. This is A position. Be moved to non-working position. I'll repeat that across the bed. Remember, you don't need to change your row counter for now. So I'm going to take the camera backward a little so that you see it. I'm going to take the camera across the bed. Just zoom and view it across the bed so that you see that we've already pushed all alternate needles to A position. You can see that it's now 1x1 needle there. 1 needle in, 1 needle out. Okay. So what we're going to do next is using stitch die 2, because the stitch I'm to use, the main stitch die, is stitch die 3. But for the welt, I'll be using stitch die 2. I'll be using stitch die 2. Don't know if you can see it. Okay. Yeah, I'll be using it to cast on. My carriage is on the right. Sorry, I have to zoom out. I want you to see my work. It's nice seeing it. It helps you to know what you're doing and to make sure you know you're following correctly. Okay, so I'm going to, with my waist yarn in my yarn feeder. So with my waist yarn in my yarn feeder, I'm going to knit 2 rows across. So I have to tilt the camera to the other side of the bed so that you see the bed properly. Clearly. I'm just going to knit across. Using my hand to create a tension. Then my cast on comb, after knitting 1 row first, sorry, I have to hang my cast on comb before I start knitting any other row. You hang your cast on comb on the loop so you can see it. I'll zoom in for you to see, but let me just finish hanging first. Make sure you hang it properly, and the tail of the yarn should be on the clip. Okay, let me zoom in for you to see. First of all, I want to show you the tail of the yarn. You can see it on this clip here, And you can see that my cast on comb is hung on the loop. You can see it on the loop. Let's patient a little so that it gets clearer. Okay, so that's how you hang your cast on comb. We're not going to knit few rows across, then one row, we'll knit one row next with our Ravel cord. But let's knit few rows across first. Try not to cover the camera. So, we are using full needle bed now. If you're a blanket, you just, after knitting this work, you just continue with your full row, full needle bed until you have your desired length. I think I need to adjust this a little. Okay. See it dancing out. And I'm going to end now with my carriage on the left. Take my yarn out of my yarn feeder, hang it on the clip. If you can see, my carriage is at the left, and I hung the yarn. I took it out of the yarn feeder and hung it on the clip. Then with my Ravel cord, I'm going to now knit. My Ravel cord, I'm going to now put it in. I'm putting it in the carriage, using my hand to still create the same tension. And remember the stitch dial of the carriage, you are using 2 because it's the welt now. We change to the actual stitch dial later, which when we are using the main yarn, which is 3. That's when we are knitting the body of the work or the skirt. But for the welt, we'll be using stitch dial 2. So I'll just knit across one row across with your Ravel cord. Please endeavor that there's no knot in your Ravel cord. Make sure there's no knot in your Ravel cord so that you can remove it easily from your work after you finish knitting. Alright, then you hang the tail of your Ravel cord on both ends of the clip, or both sides of the clip, or both of your Ravel cord tail. So we are still going to be on stitch die 2. Let me zoom in so that you see the Ravel cord. Don't know if you can see it a bit. So you can see it. Here is the Ravel cord. Oh, sorry. Let me use my transfer tool. So you see the Ravel cord here. Okay. So I'm just going to zoom out so that you see the full needle bed. Alright, with my yarn in my yarn feeder, have I changed? Okay, you have to change your row counter now to 0, 0, 0 because you are going to need the welt and want to count. When I was designing, I didn't put a welt, but I made sure that the length of the skirt is going to be 40 centimeters. You can design and put a welt if you desire, but I didn't because now I was going to knit a welt. I think I forgot that, but I forgot. So what I'm going to do is that here it tells me that row, sorry, hope you can see it properly. It's a cast on 150, row 1 needs this, then row 2 to, so we are going to need to about 126 to row 126, and we'll cast off for the gather. So what I'm going to do is I'll use row 1 to row 20 for my welt. But since I'm going to do a mock rib for the welt, I'll need up to row 40 because you have to fold it. Then I'll return my row counter to 20 so that I'll start knitting. Alright, let me start knitting. Alternatively, I can just knit take 1 to 20 for my welt and just knit the welt. After that, I'll take my row counter back to 0, 0, 0 and do another and just continue from there. If I want it want the skirt longer, just use 20 rows for my welt. But depend on you. You should have it's good for you to calculate your to know the numbers of rows you have to knit for your welt. You don't want your welt to be more than what you desire. So I forgot that and I'm so sorry. But since I've been knitting welt, I'm just going to, I did an A-line skirt on it. So I know how, I'm already used to the rows and everything. So I'm just going to knit row 1 to 20 for my welt. That means I'm going to be knitting 40 rows since I'm going to fold. Mock rib, you fold and pick up loops. Alright, let me start. I have to knit up to 40. So I'll just adjust the camera a little. You only see the carriage moving until I get to 40. Because I don't want to cover the needle bed. My yarn is tangled a little, so I have to lose. Don't know. I just have to make it free of knots. Now I'm using my a ball yarn, and I'm using it. I took the yarn from the middle of the ball because I don't want it to roll around. So I just keep on. Just keep on knitting. I'm on row 14 now. Okay, if you notice my row counter shows 40 now. That means I finished knitting my welt. But that's not just it all. We have to now pick the loops. We have to pick the loop up, the first loop above the Ravel cord. So I'm going to zoom in so that you see the loop, and I'm going to pick a few. Then I'll do the others off camera, not to make the video too long. You can watch previous videos where I did it without turning off the camera. Alright, if you notice, you can see this is the Ravel cord. Let me pick one that's directly. Okay, this is the Ravel cord. It's very tiny little thing here. Okay, this is the Ravel cord. But we are going to pick this loop and hang it on its coordinating needle up. We take her, you see, the coordinating needle is in non-working position. But I do love picking this coordinating loop here and just pull this needle. I don't know if you can see it. Okay. Pull this needle out of work position or non-working position and hang it. I'll do another one so that you see. It's really dragging it. Let me take one from the edge. It's really pulling all the yarn together. Okay. Okay, let's just bear with me a little. So that I focus the camera well. Okay, here it is. I'm gonna pick the loop. I'm gonna pick this first loop. I don't know if you can see it, but let me just pick it first. I'm gonna pick this first loop. Yeah, the loop. You can see the loop I'm picking it. This is the second donor. And if I take the camera upward, you will see that its needle, it has another loop up there. So I'm going to pick its coordinating loop and pull its needle out from non-working position and hang both loops on it. That is the up and bottom loop. I'm going to pick another one across. This is the second loop I'm picking, and you see it's coordinating upper loop here, lower upper loop, and the coordinating upper loop. You can see it. So 2 loops on the needle now. And I'm going to pull this needle from non-working position and hang it. As you hang it, make sure you push. You can push all your needles to, since you are not patterning using any pattern stitch, you can push all your push the needles that you've worked on to hold position. This is because sometimes if you are not careful, your stitches will drop. So I'm doing same for this one. I'm going to pick this loop now, and that's a loop before the Ravel cord or after the Ravel cord, depending on. Then you pick its coordinating upper loop and you hang it. So I'll just do that across. Then at the end, I'm going to take the camera to the left side because there's one loop there that we're supposed to pick. I just need to teach you how to pick that loop. I've done it in previous videos. So let me go in. Sorry. Okay. Let me try and pick it. Okay, I think that's clear. So if you notice this Ravel cord, I'm just going to take the Ravel cord out of the clip. It's hanging on a loop here. It's kind of tight. If you look, you can see the loop is hanging on. That loop, sorry. Okay, this is the loop it's hanging on. This loop needs to be picked. It's different from this second loop here. This loop that is hanging on needs to be hung on the last needle on the left. So I'll just pick the loop. Let me see if you can. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you can't see it. I'm coming. I'll have to take the camera and do that again. Okay. You can see that this the Ravel cord here is hanging on one loop. Let me bring it a bit closer. Okay. I'm so sorry. All right. So if you notice here, the Ravel cord I think I'm taking it out of the camera. Okay. This Ravel cord is hanging on this loop here. You can see the loop and you see the Ravel cord, yes. So I'm going to pick this loop. I'm going to pick the loop and hang it on the first needle. You see this loop is different from the loop the transfer stitch needle is on. It's different from this second that my nails are on. That my nail is on. So my fingernail is on the second loop. This loop is different. So we have to hang this loop that the transfer stitch is on, that the Ravel cord is holding. We have to hang it on the first needle, not the needle in non-working position, the first needle on your left. So I'm just going to do that. And then we can pick the other ones and hang them. So when I finish, you can see hanging it on there. But when I finish, you see everything will be straight and fine, and I'll put on the camera. I have to do this one because it's a full needle bed. Looking at the top of the needle bed, you will see I've already finished. I just opened it a little so that you can see the stitches. And let me tilt the camera a little. Okay, you can see that some needles have, like this needle has 2 stitches or 2 loops on it, and this one has the next one has 1, the other one has 2. The one that has 2 are the ones we picked up the loops on, and I'm just going to go down to I think the lighting is too much. Okay, if you see this, you can see that the wells has disappeared. It's at the back because we picked the loop, and this is our waistband, and you can see the waistband, but the welt is at the back because we picked the loop, so it looks as if it has disappeared. Alright, why I normally pick the loop is because it forms a tube, and you can also use it. So if you decide to insert a band through it, you can use this technique too. And the loop is closed because you pick your upper and lower loop. It's like a side loop. Alright, so now I'm going to change my carriage. Oh, before I do that, I'll have to change my row counter to 000 because you're going to need the body of the skirt. You are going to need the skirt now. And I'm going to change my carriage, the stitch dial on my carriage. I'm going to change it. I just changed it to 3. Just change the stitch dial on my carriage to 3. Sorry. So I've changed it to 3 now. Okay. So my carriage is at the right hand side of the bed. Carriage at the right hand side of the bed. Okay. So my row counter is already on 0, 0, 0. Just zooming in so that you can see it closely and see that it's on 0, 0, 0, because we're going to need a skirt. Alright, so I'm going to cast, we'll finish casting on. We need to row 1 to 126, then we'll cast off. But we are not going to cast off. Instead, we'll remove, when we get to row 126, we're going to remove the knitting with a waist yarn, because we want to form the gather. And you know, to form the gather, you have to transfer 2 stitches into 1 needle. And since I don't have a gather bar for this bed, I'm going to use my waist yarn. So I just knit a few rows across, then I'll turn off the camera and knit the others off camera, because it's going to be a long knit and I don't want you to be bored. See me knit 126 rows. I didn't hang this one properly. Just going to show you something that happened. That's why it's good to make sure your stitches are properly. I'm going to show you. See something that happened here? You can see this loop. Make sure you check your needles when you're knitting across, because my stitches just dropped there. So I'm going to pick them. So that you see how I'm going to repair it. So I'll remove this upper one which we just knitted now. I'll pick this lower one and this and hang it. Okay, wait. Oh, sorry. I have to done it wrongly. Don't worry, just be patient. This upper loop is what we just knitted. You see, the carriage is on its way down to the left hand side of the bed. But I'm going to pick this lower loop. This is the loop we picked before the ravel cord, and this is the loop we picked above this coordinating loop, and I'm going to hang it on this needle. It's needle that dropped. I'll let both stitches go to the back of the latch. Then this upper loop that we are still knitting with, I'm just going to let it come into the hook and use it to manually knit it in. Sorry, I have to cover it a little and allow it to manually knit it in. So I'm going to do same across for the stitches that it dropped. So please check your stitches. Make sure you don't drop stitches like me. I thought I pushed the needles out properly. Alright. But sometimes, if you don't see these mistakes, they can be costly. So it's good to watch out for them. And it's good also to learn how to rectify them in case you encounter them. Alright, okay. So I've picked them. Just 3. That's fine. I'll just push them out. I don't want to lose them anymore. Okay. So just going to knit across. Going to till the center that you see. My carriage is at the right now. Just knitted the second row. And I'm going to knit about one more row, then I'll continue off camera. Okay, so I have to continue off camera. I've finished the 126 rows, and my carriage is on the right. You can see it on the right. So what's going to happen now is that I have to remove this. I'm not going to cast off. Instead, I'm going to remove this knitting with the waist yarn. So I'm going to just put my waist yarn in my yarn feeder. You can see that I've taken my yarn out of my yarn carriage, and I just hung it. I used the yarn clip at the back of the needle bed to take it out of the way, and I just hung it on this clip here on the stand. I don't know if you can see that one. Let me see. Okay, sorry. Okay, on this stand here I hung the clip. Let me tilt it a little. I just hung the clip here. I'll just zoom in for you to see it. The yarn, just to take it out of the way properly. So what's going to happen now is that I'm just with my waist yarn in my yarn feeder. I'm not changing my tension. My tension is still on 3. I'm going to knit few rows to take my, before I remove the knitting. Oh, my stitch dropped. I didn't look. Wow. Now I have to pick. Okay. I dropped my stitches. You can see it that it dropped. My yarn just came out. I wasn't looking at what I was doing. So I'm just gonna pick the loop and hang them. Let me zoom in so that you see I'm picking the loop. Making some mistakes today. This is the waist yarn. I'm just going to pick the loop of the waist yarn and hang them. So I've picked a few. I'll put off the camera and pick the others off it. I'll pick the others off camera and I'll come back, because I think I dropped a lot. So please always make sure that you see I dropped a lot. I have to put off the camera, pick them and come back. Finish picking the stitches I dropped, remaining 4. Just put it, hanged it properly. I remember when I was a beginner, anytime I drop stitches, that's the end of the knitting. Until one day I had the courage to pick up my stitches, and since then, anytime I drop stitches, I try and rectify the problem. That was after ending up with a large amount of unfinished work. Alright, okay, so I'm going to rip the row out because I didn't, you see the loop here. I can manually knit it across, but I don't want to do that. I just want to rip it out. Why do the work of the machine? Okay. I don't need to change my row counter because it's waist yarn. So I'm just pushing my needles to. Let me let you see my needle bed. I'm just pushing my needles to hold position. Okay, I think that's all right. You can see the needle bed. So my yarn feeder. But this time I focus. I was looking at the camera previously while I dropped the stitches, and I was using my hand as a yarn tension to create a tension for the yarn, the waist yarn. So I didn't know when I moved my hand out of the way. So we'll finish knitting. I just knitted a few rows. Let me zoom out so that you see my work. I've knitted a few rows with the waist yarn. You can see the waist yarn on top here. So what I'm going to do now is remove my cast on comb. I have to remove the cast on comb at the bottom. I have to remove my cast on comb because we don't need it anymore. And just move the carriage across the bed to drop the knitting. So we just move the carriage across the bed to drop the knitting. Alright, here's my knitting dropped already. I'm going to remove the ravel cord now. You can see my ravel cord is still here. I have to remove it. Sorry, it's not the knit is not that tidy now. But by the time I finish, it will be tidy. Very tidy. So I've pulled my ravel cord. You just pull your ravel cord out. So I've pulled it out of the way, out of the knitting, and the waist yarn from the waist yarn using casting on will just fall out or drop. Okay. Push all needles back to a position. And I'm going to take the if you notice the gather, when we are knitting the gather, it says we have to knit to row 126, and that we did. So now we want to knit the skirt band, and to get the needles for the skirt band, when I was designing, it gave me 150 needles. Since our needle bed is 150, you can use that. But what about those? What about when you want to knit for a larger size and the numbers of needles are more than what you need? So I'm going to do the other one, because this one, while I was designing it, I put into consideration my kind of needle bed because I extended it. So now I don't want to do that because of those that have just one needle bed, or that desire to know the exact, they don't want to knit the band in one because of the numbers of needles they have on their needle bed. Because this size is just to fit a child of 59 centimeters that has a chest of 59 centimeters. What if you want to knit of 60 centimeters or so? You will need a lot of needles. So let's do it the other way. You need 2 pieces, especially when you're going to knit a gather and gown. It's very good for you to know this technique I'm going to teach you, so that you can knit a gather gown like the ones in the beginning of the video and at the end of the video. Alright, so we're going to, instead of that, we're going to, first of all, we have to know the rows we need for our band. we need to knit 26 rows for our band. 26 rows for our band. But how many needles do we need to cast on now that we are not going to cast on 150 needles? You can divide 150 by 2 and you get 75. But also, this, we can also use that also for knitting our garments. You see the same technique you use in knitting the garment. That's why I have to change it. So what we're going to do now is that this is a sleeve. The back, we'll need to cast. So we are taking it back as if we are going to knit the garment now. I'm going to knit, push 76 needles to work position and hang our stitches on those 76 needles. So if you were knitting the garment, you just continue from there. After hanging your needles on those, your stitches from the gather on those 70, you push the numbers of needles required for the back of the garment to work position, and you hang your stitches 2 on each needle on that you hang your stitches 2 on that needle, on each needle, you hang your stitches 2 on each needle for the back, and you just continue knitting the back pattern as it's been stated in the instruction of toning the back. You don't need to do any other thing. All you need to do is just transfer your stitches onto the numbers of needles that is required for the back or the front of the knitwear, and you just continue knitting. So we are going to use that technique now for the gather skirt. So we need 76 needle to work position. So I'm going to push 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. And we'll push 76. I've pushed them to, so I just push them back to B position because we are going to hang stitches, 2 stitches. And take your row counter to 0, 0, 0 because you're going to start knitting the main garment now if you are going to knit the gown. So you can take up any sweater design and just add in. You can order your sweater designs that you already have, and you desire to add gather to the bottom of it for a little girl. You can just continue with this technique and add the gather. Just desire the length of the gather and multiply the stitches required for the back by 2, because 2 stitches in 1 needle will give you your gather. Then you can knit your gown, you can knit your gather gown with any sweater design. Easy, isn't it? Alright, I've already pushed them. I have to take the camera closer to the bed and also focus it on the bed. Alright, I think that's a bit fair now. So you see, if you look at the stitches, you can see just like when we're picking loops. I don't know. Okay. I'm going to take the camera back and you see my full needle bed. See, I'm going to pick this stitch. This stitch is here above this white loop. You see these stitches here? So the one we're going to pick, the one above the white loop. That's above the waist here. So let me just pick this one first. You remember 2 stitches on the needle? So I'll hang it on this needle. Pick the second one. hang it on the same needle. 2 stitches on a needle. We repeat across, picking the loop above the waist here. Now just pick 2 together now and hang it on one needle. You can pick them one at a time. There's no offense there. When you are used to it now, you can now pick 2 or 3 at a time, depend on the gather effect you're trying to create. So just continue picking it across the needles. This the same method you use in knitting the back, the gather gown. You just hang your stitches on the needle and just follow the instructions and continue from there. The stitches you have, the needles you push out, is usually the garment you are supposed to start on with. Like if you're going to knit the back of the sweater, or the back of the sweater, let's just use that. If you are going to start knitting the back of the sweater, you have to push the needles that's been required to knit the back of the sweater. You have to push it out and hang your stitches on those needles. So we just continue across, picking, putting 2 stitches, then we'll remove our waist yarn to see if it will. I love removing my waist. Some people finish knitting before they remove their waist yarn, but I love removing my waist yarn when I finish picking, so that I'll say that in case I drop any stitches or any stitch, I'll notice on time, instead of finish knitting before I notice that I've dropped some stitches. So it's that's how I do mine. We have various ways, and whichever way is easier for you. So I've picked some now. Remember, putting 2 stitches at a time. 2 stitches onto a needle. You see it? 2 stitches. I'm going to hang it on this next needle. So each needle has 2 stitches because we are reducing the size of the gather now, so that it fits the back or the band of the skirt. Since it's a skirt we are knitting, we are using the back for it, the back of the garment, because it's the same method that is being used to knit a gather gown. The only difference is that for the skirt, you just stop at a certain row, while for the gown, you continue as being instructed, as instruction states on how to knit the back of the sweater. I'll show you some finished gowns that I did. After at the end of the video, I'll show you the gowns. And I'll also show you as we work on the skirt. After we finish working on the skirt, sorry. I think I missed one here, so I'll just go back and transfer my stitches to make sure they fit properly. So even if the needles, we casted on 150 and we're told to do 38 on each side to give us the 76 needles for the back or for the band. If your needles are more than that, you can put one at this end and one at the other end. Or don't worry, you can also increase just 1 stitch to get your correct stitches on the needle bed. Okay, I'll do the others off camera, but I'll just first of all move the camera a bit backward so that you see the gather forming. You can see that it's a bit, it's kind of gathery here because 2 stitches has been put on, 2 stitches around the needle, or it's on a needle. So I'll do this off camera, and when I finish hanging out the remaining stitches, I'll put on the camera. See, I finished, let me just tilt the camera so that you see it clearly. I finished hanging my needles, my stitches on the needles, and I noticed that perhaps I didn't calculate very well. There was one extra one. There's also be an extra needle for me to fill in because the bag required 7 to 6 stitches. And you know, for the gather, we casted on 150 stitches or 50 needles. So I needed one extra. I will increase it as we need. I'll just take my carriage to the right side so that to continue. And I'm going to lose my waist yarn. Take it off. I just want to take my waist yarn off. I told you I prefer doing it this way so that I see if I miss any stitch or stitches. I can rectify it before finish knitting the garment and sewing it. I don't want to. I just want to do things. Okay. So I'll just take the camera a little and focus it on the needle bed. You will see that we have stitches, about two stitches on each needle. I think this one dropped, so I'm going to hang it. Because when you remove it, you see the one that you forgot and the one you missed, or the one you forgot. So we have 2 stitches, and I don't think I missed any one. Okay, now we can now start knitting. So set your row counter to 000. If you're going to knit a gather gown, you just continue knitting the back from here. Since you've already casted on, we've already pushed 7 to 6 needles to work position, you just continue knitting from here and follow the instructions for the back or the front if you're knitting a gather gown. But since we want to knit a band of the skirt, and I decided to divide my band into 2 because of those people that don't have an extended needle bed, or so as to teach you also how to continue a gather gown from here, from this gather, to knit the gown part, the upper part from this gather. We're going to now knit the band. But since we've divided it into 2, here I'm going to just knit, we're just going to knit up to row 26 and cast off. See, follow the instruction for the band because it gives us the numbers of rows to knit. But the only thing I altered was dividing this 150 by 2 so that I can have, I can knit one side of the skirt, then knit the other side of the skirt and add them together like as in a gather gown, and also to teach you how to continue knitting a gather gown. Alright, I'll just still, you use your same tension or stitch die. Mine is stitch 3, I've not changed it. We just continue knitting, and I'll knit 20 up to row 26. I want to increase that stitch, the 76th needle, or the 76 stitch. You know, we casted on a 150, and the back requires 100 and the back requires 76 needles. So I want to knit that, increase that stitch. I don't want to use this last one now because it's kind of flimsy, so I'll move it. Different from how the normal, the normal one just move and increase from here, but now I'm going to move about 2 stitches first because I want to increase it from the middle somewhere here, because that last stitch is a bit too flimsy for me. I want a sturdy one. Just going to zoom in so that you see. Okay, I think that's perfect. So I've already moved 2 stitches out for me to increase. So I'm gonna pick this one here. This the heel of the stitch here. I'm just gonna pick it, and I'll hang it on this middle needle. The needle here, I'll pull it out. Okay. Let me just push it out manually. I've dropped the stitch. Okay, let me do it again. Just push that stitch back. Okay. I'll pick this heel here, the heel of this stitch, and just push the middle needle that's without stitch. I'll just pull it out and hang it there. So I've increased one. I have 76 stitches, or 76 needles. Now I can continue knitting my the band or the back, depending on what you're knitting. But me, I'm knitting the band, so I can continue knitting the band. We still need to knit 25 more rows. So you know, we cast off on the 26th row. Let's continue. Let me zoom out so that you see my full knitting. Sorry. I don't know, I just enjoy it when you see my full knitting. I know you want to see the carriage moving across the needle bed. Alright. If your end needles don't knit properly, you can just push them out, especially when they are skidding, sort of. Oh, this one. Especially these stitches don't knit properly, you can just push them out to hold position, but make sure your carriage is still on stockinette and you just knit across. It helps, it enables them to knit well, especially when you have more stitches or kind of in a haste. Pushing the needles too fast, or the carriage too fast, you still need it. Just trying to lose some yarn. Sorry for the time taking. Just losing some yarn. Now I'm using hand ball yarn. I'm using ball yarn. I'm using yarn too. And 26. Wow, all finished. Let me just take the camera back so that you see our full work. You can see it here. Alright, that's perfect. Okay, just come forward a bit. Now it's time for us to cast off. The same cast off method. I've not I've changed it. Okay, so we have to cast off and get ready to sew on the sewing machine. Let me take it and zoom out zoom in. So let me see it. Sorry, I just need to put it properly. It's good when you get a clearer picture of what I'm doing. See it clearly without having to strain your eyes. Okay, that helps. All right, okay. So I'll first of all take this yarn and take it right a good position. Okay, I'll push the needle out, wind the yarn around. Please don't make your cast off very tight. Please don't. Just be a bit normal, not too loose. All right, you don't want it to kind of be loopy when you stitch it on. So wind your yarn around the hook of the needle. You know the stitch on the needle goes to the back of the latch. You see my latch here? Let me use this transfer to lift it up. You see the latch? It goes to the twist. You see the stitch at the back of this latch. But you wind the yarn around the hook and you just manually knit this one in first. But the stitch still there. You take from the second needle in, you take the stitch from it, move it to the first needle, take both stitches and move it back into the second needle, and take the first needle out of work position. Then you wind your yarn around the hook of the second needle, which now becomes the first, and you knit it in. So you just continue decreasing. You don't need to knit again. Just all you need to do is just do transfer. Take the stitch from the second needle, transfer it onto the first needle. Take both stitches from the first needle back onto the second needle. Okay, take the first needle out of work position because we are decreasing, and what you do now is wind your yarn around the hook of this needle. That is now the first. That's the second that has become the first, and just manually knit it in. You continue until you have no needles left on your needle bed, or until all stitches has been casted off. So you wind your yarn around and you manually knit it in. Make sure it's not too loose, make sure it's not too tight. You don't want it pulling your knit when you are stitching it. So I'll do a few, then I'll put off the camera to do the other one off camera, so I don't spend too much time. You can watch the previous video where I didn't put off the camera. I did everything from start to finish without even editing the video or putting off the camera. So I've already finished. You can see just remaining 2 stitches, and I'll just transfer the last stitch on this needle onto this second needle. Wind my yarn around and just pull it out. Remove my stitch from the needle. Remove my stitch or my knitting from the needle. I'm just going to pull this loop open a little. Break my yarn and pull my yarn through this loop to secure it. I don't want the stitch to lose, so I just want to secure it. Now to weave it into the knitting, the garment layout. Alright, I'm going to place it so that we pin it out and get our sewing machine ready. Then we can sew. But before then, I just want to show you how it is now. Okay, let me see. Okay, shoot. I just want to hold it and show you how it is. I'm folding it a little. Let's see. I don't know if you can see it. Okay. You can see this, the waist, and that's the welt. You can see the gather forming. You can see the gather here forming. So let's pin it out and get sewing. So here's the gather skirt, one panel or first panel, and here's the second panel. So I'm just going to place it. You need the first panel and the second panel same way, and we're going to pin it now. So I'm just lining up the same. And I'm using a color-coded pin. Let me zoom in so that you see it closely. Okay. So I'm just lining up the seam. First of all, I'm lining the band, the waistband. And you see there's a waistband. So I'm lining it up and with the first and second panel together. Right side, you see the knit side facing the knit side. So I'm just going to line it up and pin it. Then go to the sewing machine to complete, to stitch it up together. Make sure this band here that it lines properly. It's good to do things right, especially when we learn stripes. You will understand that if it don't line properly, it's gonna show, and it don't make you look professional. All right. So just keep on in that manner. We repeat for both sides. Repeat pinning for both sides. So I'm just going to pin one side since we are doing same for the other side. Just going to pin one side and stitch. And do the other one off camera and stitch too. So, trying to be a little bit fast. But I know you are following, so it still affects me, so I'll still go slow. Alright, see the ones I've done, I've pinned this part, and you can see the skirt taking shape. Also, before we sew, I just want to point out, okay, I'll do that after I finish stitching it up. And the welt, make sure the line properly too. Don't worry about all this loose yarn, we'll weave them in when we finish. That's why we have the crochet hook. Or you can use a tapestry needle. You thread your yarn through it and just hide it in your knitwear. The same edge. Alright, I'm just trying to line it up properly. I don't want to stitch one layer and leave the other. You know, it's like a tube. I want to stitch them together. Alternatively, instead of going through this process for knitting the band, you can also use this 1x1 ribbon for the band. I'm just put elastic through it. You can see this 1x1 ribbon texture for the band and put elastic through it. You know, it's like a tube. Let me use this other side. You know, it's like a tube, like so. So you can knit it at the as your band, and you put your elastic through it, and line it up, then close it. But for those, so you see there are different methods of knitting your gather skirts or finish this part. Okay. Let's go to the sewing machine and get sewing. So I'm just going to take the camera a little to the sewing machine and fix this prop. Okay. I've already threaded my sewing machine. You can see my thread and my bobbin thread is already here. I'm using a tension of, let me just tilt it a little. I know it's lighting these perimeters. Okay, I'm using just a standard, this is a standard tension, upper tension. And for my lower tension also, I'm using between 1. I don't want the stitch to be long, so I'm going to just make it a little after 1, like 1.2. So let me just say 1.2 or so. And the stitch I will be using is stitch 5. Stitch 5 is a back stitch and it's close to the left. You can use stitch 5, stitch 6, or you can use a zigzag, the edge. You can also use an overlocker. So let me just stitch this part a little first. Please don't make your seam bulky. You don't want it to be, it's uncomfortable. It makes the knitwear uncomfortable when your seam is bulky. So please don't make it bulky. Just take a little seam allowance. Normal sewing procedure to move back a little and forward to secure your sewing or thread. I don't know why they say it's so much in sewing anymore. But don't worry, get the right one. Okay, secure your stitching. All right. Take care when sewing. Look at your fingers. You don't want to stitch. I stitched mine one time. There was blood everywhere. I still wore the dress that same day because I was doing last minute sewing. I still wore that dress out. But my fingers was bandaged. So take care when sewing. That's it. We've sewn one side and I'll just sew the other side. I'll just stitch it up quickly. And so I'm just going to using my, I didn't pin it, so I'm going to let me hurriedly pin it. It's rolling. Alright, I'm sewing, stitching up the second side of the skirt. Already pinned it up, so I started stitching. finish that, it's time for us to put our elastic. So let's go to the board and fix our elastic. Just take the camera so that we put our elastic. But first, before I put the elastic, I'm still going to show you something, and I'll still show it at the end of the video. If you see the skirt, this is our skirt. Let me do that a little. Here's our skirt. You can see this is the welt, and you can see this is the band. This other part is the band. You can see where the gather starts from. And that's the band. We're going to fold this band to meet where this we're going to fold the band up to, let me see if you can see it. Okay. We are going to fold this where they gather. It's where we put 2 stitches into the needle. So we're going to fold it and we'll pin it. We'll repeat that across so that the band, you will see that the band is from, once you fold, you'll notice that this is the band, and we'll put our elastic through, stitch our elastic, and then our skirt will be ready. But before we pin that out, I just want to put something, and I'll also put it at the end of the video. Show you some finished gowns too at the end of the video. I don't know if I can. Okay. If you notice, this is the same way with this. You can see this. This is a gown. Let me see if I can make it. See it properly. So you can see this is a gown. Just bear with me. I'm trying to position it properly so that you see it. This is the gown. You can see the neck part of the gown forming, and there's the skirt part, the gathered part, and there's the upper part of the gown. You can see the armhole, and you can see it as well. So you now notice that, like the skirt part of the skirt we knitted about up to some inches here for us to get a band, for our skirt. So you notice that what I was telling you in the beginning when we were knitting on the knitting machine, I said that if you want to knit the back, you just continue like so. You just continue following the instructions. You don't need to knit a band. All you need to do is just transfer your stitches into the needle, and you just continue knitting. So here, you can see that we've all knitted it, that I've knitted them, and I just attached the front to the back, by the shoulders. This is because I want to knit the neckband of it. There's a front, sorry. You can see the curve of the front. Let me put the front out, and the other part is the back. So this way I attached them, and you can see that's clearer. And here's the armhole. I'll just bring another one so that you see, and you see that you attach the front to the back, and then you have a gown. Attaching the front, you attach the front to the back, and then you have your gown. So that's how you knit your gown. So you can take any cardigan or sweater. If you decide now to add a gather to it, you start from the gather. Make sure the needles, you can multiply those needles that are needed to cast on for the sweater. Just multiply it by 2. You get the amount that you need for your gather. Then knit your gather, transfer stitches back, 2 stitches into a needle, and then continue knitting the sweater. So with any pattern, any of your pattern of sweaters, and you want to, for a child or for yourself, you want to knit a gather gown, you want to turn it into a gather gown, you can take any sweater pattern and get on with it. All right, let me show you another one before we finish before we knit we sew the band. This one is the blue outfit, and I've already attached this. You can see the sleeve here. I've already attached the sleeve. You can see the front. There's a back. You can see it's the same way that it has been. You can see where we did two stitches. You can see the stitches. So there's the front. We've already knitted our neckband, and so here it is. You can decide to knit yours in stripes. You can decide that the bottom will be multi and the front top will be stripes. It's up to you. And here's another one. You can see there's like the skirt we've done, but the bodies is another color. We just pick a color from here and use it for the bodies. But this, well, the skirts, we use the same yarn for it. And remember we did this in the previous video of shoulder opening, buttonhole shoulder opening. Then you'll be able to do that. You just continue. You can take that sweater we did in the previous video and now add gather to it, and it becomes a gather gown for you. Here is using texture stitches. We use texture stitch for this one. We've already knitted the gown. It still has a buttonhole opening. Okay, here is the buttonhole at the shoulder, but instead we did texture stitch at the bottom. This is tuck lace. We did tuck lace here, and the bodice is plain. So at the end of the video, I'll show you the gown on a model or no, a mannequin, so that you see it. So for now, let's go to our sewing machine. Okay, before we go to the sewing machine, we need to pin. We need to pin the band. So fold. Okay. Just going to take the camera towards the light now again. So we're going to fold the band to where we're going to make it meet where the stitches where we started knitting the band, and we want everything to line up, seam lining up properly with seam, and you just have to pin. If you watch how to knit A-line skirt, you can still follow that to do your band. You see how we pinned it? So I'll be a little bit fast. That's what I always say. But I still remain that conscious that you're watching, and I have to take it a bit slow. Alright. So I'm not really that fast. Okay, we just keep on pinning. So we just keep on pinning. And I'll complete the others. I'm going through all this because of beginners. You know, a lot of time it's nice to know how things will be done from beginning to finish, from starting to finish. Okay. You want to know how things come together, especially when you're learning different designs or different techniques. It enables you to be able to maneuver or manipulate the design to suit you. Then you know where you want to alter, you know where you want to. Then you can start designing your own knitwears yourself. And remember, when we're stitching, we're going to leave an opening to thread our elastic. And after threading our elastic, we're going to close it. So we'll need a safety pin to thread in our elastic, right? Good. So just bear with me. I won't finish pinning. Lining it up is very important. If not, you get twisted knits. And it's kind of uncomfortable, right? Especially, it can be a new design. If I can tell, that's how some design comes out from mistakes being made. Okay, so I finished, but when I'm stitching, I'm going to just leave an opening and I'll close it after that. So what's going to happen next is that I'm going to cut my elastic. You can see the skirt is so big now, but when we put the elastic, we shrink it down a little and it will be so nice for that little girl. So just, you see the skirt, and also you can make it longer if you desire. You can make it shorter, you can make it any length you want. It can be up to the ground. Princessy, vintage, it's up to you. It's your knitwear, play with it. Alright, I'm going to use some fat elastic. I think I have a tape measure close by, so let me measure this one. You can use the front elastic as desired. Let me just put it from 1 inch to, okay, so see the weight of the elastic. I'm just putting it from 1 because this head is gone. The starting of the tape measure is gone. Alright, so here it is. But you can still use a small elastic, it's up to you, but I just prefer using a wide elastic, especially for the band. I don't want it to be too tiny. It's just my own opinion, just my own preference. So what I'm going to do is just measure it across around the waist, or you can just measure the waist of the garment. You know, elastic stretches, and when you stretch it fits properly. So we're just going to put it across like so, and maybe add half to it because I want it to stretch. So like let me say the band of the front, and a little more than half. After stretching, you know, you need to stitch it up for seam, so it should be more than half, 1.5. How am I supposed to say that now? Okay, let me repeat again. If you place it in front of your skirt, the front part, you will see that, okay, that's appropriate, but we need to add about half again. Let's say for the back it should be half, so the full length, the full width of the skirt in front, that's the band of the skirt, and half, let's say, from the back. And I'm just going to add a little, I didn't measure, so I'm just measuring roughly. So I'm just going to add another a little because of my seam, because you're going to fold too, and not to let the seam pucker, I'm going to flatten our seam so that the elastic will glide easily and not be coming out, poking out of the knitwear and making the knit uncomfortable. So we're just going to add half and put a little for our seam. You can use eyelets, is it buttonhole elastic? I think that's a great one too, so that you can extend you can use buttonhole elastic so that you can extend the, you know, as a child, the waist of the child increases, or the person increases, or the person goes slimmer, the skirt will still fit. Alright, let's go to the sewing machine and get sewing, because we have to finish our skirts. Okay, see the same stitch, I'm just going to sew it so clean, close to the, or stitch it so close to the cast off band. Or you can stitch it on the cast off band. So just keep on, and don't forget to leave that opening to thread your elastic. Seam lining up with seam. And we're back to the beginning. Opening, and I'll just take my sewing machine off. So let's thread the elastic. So here I've put my, let me measure the elastic with a tape measure so that you know the length. Okay, let me measure. So it's about 23 inches. The 23 inches, oh, 23.5, sorry. 23.5 inches, okay. That's the elastic I'm using. So yes, that's okay. Opening, is it here? I've seen it now. So here's the opening, and what I'm doing is just threading in the elastic. Just threading in the elastic through. The opening I left is small of its fits. not stretch my work. But if it's too small, you can use the unsewer or seam ripper to just lose some few sewing thread or sewn stitches. Be careful, you don't want to cut through your knitwear. Seems my pin opened. Okay, I think I've to be careful so that I don't open next time. Okay, I'm back to the beginning. So let me, so I know I left a very small opening, so we need to, okay, my pin open the second time. Now finally when I'm here. Okay, alright, we need to get it out. Alright, let me just pull it out. That's where I will be able to do it. To Canada. Wow, took some elastic. So I have my elastic here and just made a mistake. My pin came out. So here I'm just gonna pick another. Here's my elastic. I think it's still here. Let me just take it out. It's wasting time. Let me take it out. I've gotten another pin. I hope this one done. Disappoint me. Be fast now. So fast. Let me not be too excited. So that this one come out well. Okay, oh, I've done the same mistake again. I've pressed it, but this time it's out. Alright, that's fine. I'm so happy. Okay, sorry, I have to make this one fast. Okay. So it's good if your elastic is not twisted in your band. It's very good if your elastic is not twisted in your band. You don't want something twisting, just want them to be the same since you're going to stitch it up. So let's go and do some stitching and then we'll close our band. So we'll just place the elastic, the two edge together like so. I'm going to seam this, but I'm going to use a zigzag stitch. stitch 15. It's all right. It's 14 or 15. So I think I'll go with stitch 15. Oh, I turned it right. So a zigzag stitch, stitch 15. Let me zoom in so that you see it. You can see it's a zigzag stitch. And I'm going to make it a bit close, like a satin stitch, because I want the edge of this elastic to seam up as if I use an overlocker. So I'm just going to just run it a bit up and down. All right. So while moving a little bit backward to set my stitch in place, and you can see here is if you can see it, okay. So here you can see that satin stitch zigzag. I've zigzagged the edge. You know, if you put the seam in the garment, it's gonna pack out like so, and because it's firm, it's going to feel uncomfortable around the hip or waist, wherever. So we're going to flatten it again. You're just going to make this, so we want the seam to lie flat, and so that it glides easily in the band of the garment. So we're going to lie it flat. You can see, just going to put my hand underneath and remove it. It's going to lie flat like so. I'm going to zigzag over it to secure it in place, and you see that it will be flat, and they go like, instead of it being like that. So no, we're going to make it flat. It's nice if it's flat. So I'm just going to go back to the sewing machine, the same stitch, but this time you might need to move it manually with your hand, because yeah, I'm good. Alright, so here we go. So we finished, and that's our knitwear. So we finished. You see that it's so flat now. Can you see? It's flat. Can go easily. That's it. So flat. Sorry, we'll trim all this away. So it's flat. You can see it's flat. You can rub it. It's not like there's a bridge here. No, the bridge is flat. You just move over. All right. Let's see our knitting now. We're finished. Join me in the next video. We'll be designing. It's going to be we'll be designing. We'll be getting a color palette from an image, and the color palette we'll be using it we'll be using it in our knitwear. We're getting a color palette from an image using Inkscape. Inkscape is a free software, graphic software or vector software, and we'll be using it. This thing's really tight, so it's making my elastic it's kind of tight. I'm trying to fix my elastic in. It's making it difficult. I'm coming. I have to get my too tight, so I want to remove some seams. You know, I did it very tight, and that little mistake is what's costing me. To make sure I see what I'm doing so that I don't cut into my knit. So please leave enough allowance. Don't know why I did that. It's not wide enough for the elastic to go in, and that's becoming a problem for me. Okay, you can see that the elastic is just got in. Oh, it seemed that this thing was too wide. The elastic, you know, it seems my elastic is too big. Oh, that's true. I don't think we need that half that we added, because my elastic is now too big. I know it needs to be snuggly. Okay. So I'm going to trim this one off later on. Let me just do it now. I don't want unfinished work in this video. Alright. Sorry. We just have to do it. I want finished work. I want finished work. Don't unfinished work. Say, oh no, she didn't finish it. Oh, where we finish it. So I'm just going to snip that out. So I've snipped the extra elastic out. You see why it's good to measure? You know the amount of elastic you want to use for your waist, and for those people that sew a lot, that use elastic a lot when sewing, don't know exactly what to do. I'm going to flatten it now again, and zigzag over it to flatten my seam so that it gets into the elastic. Okay, I think this one's good for the waist and for the model. So you want to finish knitwear in case you want to present it, and oh, I didn't finish it. You just said, Betty, just wait. It's gonna take some minutes. Just minutes. Wait, please. All right. And then you have your finished knitwear. Alright, back to our work surface. And here it is. You see, fitted properly, and it's just going to slip in. Then tuck it in. Okay, it's going to, like you see, it's lying flat. It's not puckering out. Okay, and so we have our elastic, and we have our skirt. So I'll just teach you how to hide a seam. I'll teach you how to hide a seam, then I'll show you a finished garment or a finished knitwear on a mannequin. So I just teach you how to hide a seam. When it's if it's at the welt here, it's very easy. All you need to do with a tiny crochet hook, I'm using size 3, or is it 3 centimeter or 3 millimeter? Oh, there's no one, but this but 3. Just insert it through. Take the yarn, the loose end, insert it through your work. Take the yarn and just pull it into the work. With the welt, it hides it completely. Just blends into the tube of the welt. Then you can trim off this excess one. Let's just trim this excess one off. We don't need it, it's too long. So this is another seam. I'm just going to use this seam. I can also take it into the welt, into the into the band if I want to, or I can just weave it in and out of the. I'll just put it in the seam. So I put my crochet hook and weave it in and out. You can see my crochet hook being woven in and out of the seam allowance. And I'm just going to wind the yarn around my crochet hook and just pull it through. Be careful, you don't want to pull your knit wear. So you just pull it through. You can now trim it. Be secured. You can now trim it. So that's our garment. And join me in the next video when we need when we get a color palette from an image using the Inkscape software. Inkscape is a free graphic software. We're going to use it to get color palette from an image, and we're going to use that color palette to knit stripes. So our next video, our next knitting technique is going to be stripes. That's after getting the color palette. We'll now learn how to combine, so that you can learn how to combine different colors of wools, or how to get your own color palette and design your own, to use in designing your own knitwear or designing your own stripes. Then we'll knit stripes, and we'll be working on a baby blanket. So here's our gathered skirt, and I'll fit it on a model. But before then, I just want to show you this model mannequin. It's my model for today. She's wearing the gown. You can see the gather here. This is a buttonhole. If you remember the previous video, we did buttonhole, and here is a buttonhole. I don't know, let me zoom in so that you see the buttonhole. You can see the buttonhole there, yes. So you see the buttonhole, the round neck, and gather gowns, stripe gather gown, large stripe. To make these stripe coordinates, I used to make sure it matches properly, I use designer knit. You know, I told you I always use designer knit for my designing. Okay, so there's a model wearing it. So I'll put on the model with the gown now, the skirt, so that you see how our skirt fits this model perfectly. Model with the finish gather gown. Here's our model with the finish gather skirt. Hope you enjoy it and have a lovely time. Happy machine knitting. Remain blessed. Thank you.